My goodness, Satnamji, hello, welcome. Yogis and yoginis, hello. You know, this is amazing. This is amazing. That's how the guru works. If you hear me, please let me know. Yeah. So I decided to do like this kind of choose a special theme for today, and I decided that we would do silence. What do we have? The microphone loses the configuration, and suddenly I'm in silence. So you see, everything is perfect. I didn't have to do anything. I could have just stay here and beam, radiate silence, and that would be the stream for today. But yeah, amazing, eh? You say you're gonna do something, and then the guru says, like, yeah, sure, let's do it. You want silence? Good, let's bring silence to you. Anyway, Sadnam, thank you. Sadnam Infinite Stories, hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I want to do this a little bit special video today in appreciation of having reached 1,000 subscribers, and it's quite nice. We jumped from 998 2 days ago straight to 1010, like 1010. This morning was over 1,020. Suddenly, a big spike in subscribers, I guess. Going over 1,000 is important for YouTube. You know, there is a lot of like little milestones, but 1,000 subscribers is one of them. To me, it's very important because, well, it's just a number in a way, but you know, there's something about having 1,000 people hear your voice somehow. You know, when I'm posting a video, I know there's 1,000 people who clicked somewhere that, you know, they decided that they were interested in these videos. And so this video is going to be made available to them. So I don't underestimate the value of this, you know, the value of how much presence does YouTube give you. And for many years, I taught individual classes. And when I say individual, I mean small classes, not one-to-one, but 1 to 20, 1 to 30. And I would sometimes get a big group. But very often it would be just small classes, like 2 people, 4 people. And when you are giving small classes, you shouldn't be looking for numbers, because at the end of the day, it's just about doing your service, and the students may come or may not come. But at the same time, you think, well, you know, I've done a lot of work to be where I am. I've studied a lot, I've researched a lot, I've done my practice, my discipline, and I dedicate so many hours to study yoga and philosophy, psychology, all these things that I connect together. And so when you have a wider audience, it's like somehow, you know, I'm doing my service, but if I can make it available to more people, why not, right? So there's something that Ardaas Singh says, my teacher says, humbly think big. Humbly think big, right? Don't try to get big-headed and thinking that you are reaching a lot of people. But at the same time, if you're going to serve, why not more people, right? So reaching 1,000 subscribers is important. It was important to me. It's important for the channel. And I deeply appreciate everyone who is subscribed and the members. So recently, I opened the membership capacity for the channel so people can support. And yes, there's a few members already, like Infinite Stories. Hello, welcome. Thank you very much, everyone, for your support. And yes, so I was thinking, how can we celebrate? And I had a few ideas. One is that 1,000, yeah, 1,000 subscribers. That's 1 and 3 zeros, 0, 0, 0. And the number 0, I was thinking, what can we do about the number 0? Well, number 0 is emptiness, is nothingness, yeah. And that's in some ways associated to the 0 that you have to become in order to receive something. Like, you know, in the universe, there is no vacuum, there is no voice, there is no nothingness. There is always something or some vibration at least. So when you empty yourself, something comes in. And I think that one of the most valuable empty states that there are is this zeroness that is produced through silence and listening. So listening to the silence. And that creates a state of zeroness, which we call shunya in Gurmukhi. And that shunya state that zeroness state, it's very, very close to the meditative state, because meditation is kind of a deep listening. So silence was a topic that I wanted to explore on the day of being 1,000 days. I thought it was funny because, if you reach a milestone, you want to say, yay, right? Like Infinite Stories just said in the chat, yay, right? Like when I got the microphone working, yay. And I thought, well, why not a silent yay, right? That could be like a nice, I am always exploring the paradoxes in the spiritual path. So how about the paradox between speaking and being silent? So that was one of the things I had in my mind. The other thing I had in my mind is that maybe explore something related to my name. My name is Ardaas Singh, which, if you don't know what it means, Singh is lion. So all six are, the men have the Singh after the name, and the women have the Kaur, which means princess. And this is just like an inheritance from Guru Gobind Singh, giving the Sangat the opportunity to be kind of like part of his family, like giving his own surname to them, and saying, well, you can choose to be a lion, you can choose to be a princess, and that's something that you volunteer for that, right? I'm not a Sikh in the sense that I never took vows. I don't wear the turban all the time. I wear it for teaching mainly, and but I am a disciple. I am a disciple of truth. So in that sense, that yes, I am a Sikh, and when I got my spiritual name, that was something very special about that. And spiritual names always give you a pointer in the direction of your destiny. So Singh is common to all men, but the thing that is different is Ardaas. Ardaas means actually prayer. Interesting enough, the second part of the word, das, is connected to service. So prayer and service is in a way connected. So prayer is a state, it's an action and it's a state that is very connected to silence as well, but in a different way. So I wanted to explore this in today's conversation. So if you are with me, if you are here, feel free to tell me, how is your relationship to silence, and maybe even your relationship to prayer, even though we will start with the silence first. But how do you relate to silence? How is silence important for you? So that's one thing, first of all. Those of you who have been in this channel for some time will know that I am a fan of mantras. That was my gateway into this world of yoga as an adult. It was through mantra yoga. So I love mantras, and there is one of the keys of mantra chanting is rhythm. And I found that key, rhythm, is actually present in many aspects of the yogic practice. You can learn a lot by just listening and watching. Yes, that's right. You can learn a lot, and actually, often is the fool the one who speaks, and wise is the one who listens, right? The ones who keep silence, because it's easier to speak, but it's actually wise to know when you have to speak, right? You can learn a lot from listening, and also learn a lot of what not to do and what not to say from listening to the fool, right? So I am stepping up to the challenge when I speak. I come here, this is my platform to speak, and I can be a fool by doing so, right? So this is dangerous when you open yourself to speaking in a public place. But yes, indeed, when we have a tribe, we have a group of people, and we are making a decision, it's often the wise man stays silent and listening to everything that is said, and after processing everything inside, then they have the clarity to decide, to choose, right? So we learn a lot through that listening, definitely. But then after you learn something, it's good to share it, because otherwise, what good does it make that, if you learn something, what good does it do to you? We spend the first part of our lives receiving. As babies, they give us food, they change our nappies, they give us a bed and love and take care of us. And as children, we are receiving an education and a lot of things is receiving. And at some point of life, we need to change and start giving. So even in that listening, whatever we are receiving in the listening, whatever we are hearing, and whatever we are learning from that, if we don't share it back, if we don't offer it back, then there is a danger that we lose it. I think there is something Buddhistic about that. You know, you lose whatever you hold on to. Whatever you are more attached to, that's the thing that you're going to lose. So even wisdom, if you are just growing within and not sharing that growth with others, that's kind of a very selfish way to live. So we need to have a balance between how much we keep silent and how much we share, how much we offer, how much we speak. But that balance is necessary. We're going to find that very same balance speaking as well in the context of meditation and prayer, because it has something very, very similar in the sense that we have to find a balance between one and the other. We will go into that. But yes, one of the keys of mantra chanting is rhythm, and I found that key is also very important. For example, well, if you are, let's say, a public speaker, you need to have rhythm. If you are a comedian, you have to have rhythm to deliver the joke in the right moment. If you are in sales, you are pitching your product, but then you have to have a certain rhythm and interaction with the client. Rhythm is such an important thing. Even teaching a yoga class, right? There has to be a rhythm between exercises and poses. Now, rhythm is a particular quality from music. It's something that appears in music, and then we can apply it to all these other fields. Now, rhythm appears when there is silence. If there was no silence, there would be no rhythm. There may be melody or not. You can do a melody, but rhythm implies tuk, 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 tuk implies sound and silence. So silence is the thing that gives the capacity for rhythm to appear. That's one thing. Now, we all have an inner sense of rhythm within from the moment we were in our mother's belly, hearing her heartbeat or hearing the blood flow. Rhythm was already getting intrinsically encoded in our brains, so we are designed to understand rhythm. And rhythm is key. In music, if we had no rhythm, it would be a cacophony of sounds, and there would be some melodic and harmonic, and some would be dissonant and clashing with each other, but we would lose a lot. An example that I like to give when I'm talking about silence, which is already a paradox to talk about silence, but I'm going to step into that paradox. An example that I like to give is Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And you have the bum 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 bum, right? So those moments of silence are critical. If you didn't have that, how would it feel? It would be, first of all, rushed. It would accelerate us. And one of the things about rushing is that the mind loves to be rushed. The mind, when we have trouble controlling the flow of thoughts in our mind, silence is always helpful. And taking a deep breath helps, because when you are breathing, you are stopping. So that silence is going to be very important in the regulation of what happens in the mind, and we know how important is the mind to our experience. In the context of music, that silence that is produced, that's a pregnant silence. That's full of possibilities, full of different paths that it can go into. And you are in an expectancy. You are looking forward to what's going to happen. You are in that state of openness and awareness. So that is very interesting. Now, in silence, I understand that in the past, and when I'm saying the past, it's probably hundreds of years ago, if you wanted to learn yoga, a very common way that it would be is you go next to your guru and you would sit next to him in the shadow of a big tree and just stay in silence. And he would teach through silence. So the way it is done today, we speak so much. The way we have, through Google, we have everything at our fingertips, right? So we have access to all these teachings, but traditionally, you would have to stay silent next to your teacher for many years, sometimes not even communicating a single word, and yet there would be some sort of transmission, some sort of transfer of some teaching through that silence. And that's kind of fascinating to me, that could happen. And I've actually experienced that a few times in some particular contexts. One of the contexts where I experienced that sometimes is some deep meditations with my teacher, but I've also experienced that in a more regulated way through a training that I went on healing. It's called Satnam Rasayan. And the whole healing process is done in silence. But when you are in that space, in that healing space, things happen and you get to learn what is happening and learn what you are doing and how is that affecting the silence and how that silence is seeping into the meditative state and affecting what's happening in the dynamic between you and the other person. It's oriented for healing, so it's designed to create a healing space where the person can find healing. But the way you learn to create that space is through silence. And that's really fascinating. You can be in that space and you can be learning something that is happening in somehow unspoken and silent and unseen. Yeah. So that's very interesting. And to think that hundreds of years ago you could do that. Now, it would be unspeakable today to think of this, like, imagine I just connect to this channel and I open the video and I'm just here. I could just close my eyes and just be there. We could do it for 1 hour every day. And then people would, anybody who has never seen the channel, they would connect and they would say like, what's that guy doing there? Is he going to say something? And we have so little patience that, when you are starting to do streaming, they tell you, you have like few seconds to capture somebody's attention. If you don't capture it in a few seconds, they're gone. Just forget it. So even when I'm doing my videos, regular videos, the first 20 seconds are the most important to see if it's going to grab somebody's attention. So today's video is going to be the most funny. 20 seconds and probably a minute to trying to connect the microphone. That will be really funny. But yes, silence, if we were patient enough, could capture that attention, right? That and if you allow it, it can capture your attention and it can wake you up. You're expecting what's happening, what's going to happen. Now, that state of what's going to happen is what wakes you up. That waking you up, what is that? That's consciousness. Now, isn't that the objective of the meditation? To stay conscious and to realize your true essence? And when you realize your true essence, you realize that your true essence is actually consciousness, Satchitananda, right? Chit. The chit part of Satchitananda is consciousness. So utilizing silence to stimulate consciousness should be an integral part of yoga and part of our practice. Sometimes the mind is so busy that the only way to stimulate silence is by making a sound that is even harder, stronger than your mind, so that the mind can get attached to that sound. And then when that sound stops, then the mind also stops. This is called mantra, right? Mind gets attached to it. The mantra goes higher than the mind's noise. And then at some point, when the mantra stops, silence comes. So that's why we say sometimes, mantra is a way to get into silence. But let's remember, silence is not the final objective. Yeah, silence allows us to listen. By listening, we enter into this zero state where we are most aware and ready to receive. So silence brings us to the listening. And this listening state of consciousness brings your presence. When you are doing that, you are present. You are present in that very moment. So in a way, there is this line: silence leads to listening, and listening leads to the presence. And in this state of shunya, zero, when you are in this zero state, then you have the capacity to listen to something more subtle. Now sometimes I've made this reference, like there is this kind of radios vibrating around us in the ethers. Everybody who is thinking, we are projecting thoughts. As we are thinking them, we are also projecting them. They are just waves on a very low, with very low power and a very narrow frequency, but we are projecting these waves around us. If we get very angry, and enough of us get angry, like, when we are driving and there is some traffic jam. This morning there was a big traffic jam. There was lots of ambulances passing by, and you could feel it in the state. People worrying, they are late, and they are like trying to, an ambulance would pass and a motorbike behind the ambulance trying to get through. This kind of stress that you can feel the anger or the stress in the environment around, and these waves are floating in front of us. So we can tune into that, or there is also some subtle vibrations which are divine, and they are right around us and within us, right? Even the Om, it is said, the Om vibrates everywhere. But when do we stop to listen to it? And when can we actually hear it? It's a very, very subtle frequency. It's a much stronger frequency, the frequency of road rage, right? Or stress because I'm late for work. That kind of radio is very strong. And when you are tuning in your frequency to pick up a radio with your radio of your car, when you are tuning into the radio, it's much easier to pick up road rage or I'm late than picking up Radio Guru. But if you allow yourself to go into the silence, from the silence to the listening, the listening brings you present, into the presence, and with your full awareness, you tune in, then you can hear the name. Then you can hear the Nam. Now that's Simran. That's the state of remembrance. That's when you are hearing the Waheguru resonating within. If you chant in the morning some mantras, when everything is quiet, it's great when there is nobody awake yet in your house and around you. So getting up early, that's what we call Amrit Vela. You are already tuning into that frequency and you are chanting some mantras. You are locking in your radio already to that frequency. When there's not much noise around, it's easier to pick up that very subtle radio. Then you pick it up, then don't move the dial, right? By tuning in the morning, don't move the dial and just leave it there for all day. Then it can happen, and you are driving, and there is chaos around. There's ambulances and people with the horns and so on, and you are just listening to the Radio Guru, right? So I put mantras on the way to the school. When I'm taking my daughters to the school, we chant mantras on the way. And it's quite nice. Today normally I just chant a cappella, but today I put a CD. There was a lot of noise outside with the ambulance and so on. We put a CD, and the girls were so happy and they chant with the music. And I'm thinking, well, we are establishing the frequency. And later on during the day, when there is some moment of stress, we may get lost. But if we don't get lost and we take a deep breath, that little pause for breathing, that little silence opens the space, listening, for the Simran to come. Simran is like a state, the state of remembrance. And then you may remember maybe that mantra that you were chanting in the morning, and it comes in, and then it's there. So that's what is called the meditative state, right? We meditate, we do the action of meditation to get to that state, to the meditative state. And through silence, it's an easy gateway to that. So one of the ways that we define meditation, you can define meditation in many ways, but one of the ways we can do it is like listening within, staying still and listening within, listening, maybe you can even say listening to your soul. So if meditation is listening to the soul, what is prayer? We will go back to that. Yeah, we will go back to that. But if meditation is listening, then the silence certainly has to be an important ingredient for that listening. Now, when there is this silence, we are opening the consciousness, but in order to enter into that silence, it's not always easy. For example, what I said about the noise in the mind. So vibrating a mantra can help. Let's talk about a few things that can help to go into silence. If you have any favorite one, you can write it in the chat or you can write it in the comments of the video. One is because breathing is so connected to silence because we are stopping to breathe, that's going to help, but particularly the exhale, because in the exhale you are letting go. So you're doing a deep inhale, but then even deeper exhale. And if you deepen that exhale, then the calmness and the peacefulness comes in. So exhaling deep, but also after exhaling, there is a moment of emptiness. So that's also going to connect to the silence. Actually, that space in between the exhale and the inhale is also between the inhale and the exhale. And that's also a moment where you can connect to the silence. Let's try it for a moment. So you inhale, and then when the inhale finishes, allow that moment to become longer. And only when the exhale needs to come, let it come. And then stay in the emptiness. And when the inhale needs to come, then you let it come naturally. Don't force it, but allow it to be extended. Let it be a wider space, a wider empty space between inhale and exhale and between exhale and inhale. Let's try that for a few minutes. So as we do this, you can notice how the rhythm of the thoughts quiet down. In this particular practice, it's not about making any effort. It should be effortless as breathing. You just allow it to get longer. You shouldn't feel stressed or any form of anxiety because you're running out of breath. But that's a very, very easy technique to connect to silence through the space between the inhale and the exhale and between the exhale and the inhale. Satnam Infinity, hello, welcome to the stream. That's a nice name to connect to the zero-ness of silence. If in study says I have tinnitus, so I never have actual silence, but I've learned to focus on the sound. And eventually I don't hear it as I enter a deep meditation. So it's actually becoming a tool for me. Yes, good. Well, my teacher, Mas Murray, the one who is in the shining part of that painting, of that pictures, he said that many people who think they have tinnitus don't actually have tinnitus. I think maybe we already talked about this. I'm not saying you don't have tinnitus. I'm just saying some people who think they have tinnitus, actually, they are just hearing the subtle sounds that vibrate within. Every chakra has its own frequency and vibration. And when we are going into the silence, we can hear those subtle sounds. So that's actually, he said, listening to the sounds is a psychotherapy of the yogis, he was saying. Listening to the very subtle tones beep, that you can hear inside, it's kind of like doing psychotherapy. And there's some particular techniques on how to do that, but it's very interesting, yeah? That when we totally go into silence, we start hearing all these subtle sounds within. And when you pay attention to them, you can go into a deep meditation indeed. So it's a tool. That's very good. And but yes, even if you have real tinnitus, which you probably have if you have been diagnosed with that, if this is something that is bothering you, if there is something in your life that bothers you, rather than trying to escape from that, you can make it the focus of your awareness. A good training on how to get into silence is actually the opposite, to go to a central bus stop or train station, and sit in the place where there is more people passing by, when there's more noises, and just stay there in the middle of the noise. And don't try to escape the noise, but try to hear all the noises at the same time. And because our awareness is generally focused on one thing or another thing, the moment that you try to expand and capture everything at the same time, the all becomes nothing. So the zero, yeah, that's the zero. Today we're celebrating 1,000 subscribers, that's 3 zeros. So that zero-ness of the listening to all at the same time, everything becomes zero. And then you are into a deep meditation. That's a really profound, when you can be in the middle of a train station and allow the noise to bathe your consciousness, and you go deep into that can be very profound. Infinity asks, how to hear Om in the heart chakra. Is that really possible, or is it symbolic? I believe it is true, it is possible, but you may not hear it like Om. That's the way we chant it, to hear that Om. But the Om itself, again, Mas Murray used to say that that's like a very subtle tone, like beep. And I'm not saying it's this tone; it could be a different one. So how to do that? Well, Mas Murray, he's a very special person. He had an awakening when he was very, very young. I think he was 18 or something. And he had a cosmic consciousness experience, and after that he spent a number of months trying to figure out what was happening to him, and hitchhiking all the way through Africa, down to South Africa, to the tip. And in there he met a teacher on Shabbat Yoga, and he was a Sikh as well, that teacher. And he went with him on a kind of a pilgrimage, and he said that he would wake up, I don't know if it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, maybe 2 in the morning. And for half an hour, he would be doing the Yoni Mudra. You know this one? So this is a known yogic practice where you close all the holes in your head. Now the holes are, it is said that it is through the holes that we lose our prana. And, what we look at, we lose our awareness through that. Yeah, we pay attention to something else. When you are with the screen with the finger and looking at so many things, your awareness goes through that, it gets hypnotized, and we lose part of our essence in doing that. So all our energy goes into that. Our words, whatever we say, whatever we eat, our prana is lost through our mouth, through our eyes, through our nose, through our ears. What you choose to listen to, right? If you allow negative gossiping about somebody else and you allow yourself to be in that kind of conversation, you are losing your energy there. So because the energy comes in and out through the holes in the body, then this practice, closing them all, it's like, again, becoming zero, the zero-ness, yeah? So you close with the thumbs the ears, and then with the tips of the fingers, index fingers, you close the eyes and keep them closed. By the way, this is why in Greek mythology, you would put 2 coins on the eyes of the dead person. It's not to pay some random boatman to cross to the Hades, I think it is, to the realm of the underworld, the realm of the dead. That's the mythology. That's the story that they tell you to remember to do it. But there is a certain technology to put 2 coins on the eyes. It's because the moment of death, you want the essence of your soul to go through and come out through the crown chakra, not to go through your eyes. So that's why closing the eyes is useful to gather that essence and go through the crown. So anyway, we train ourselves to do that through this practice. So you close the ears, then with the index you close the eyes, with the middle fingers you close the nose, and with the other 2 fingers you close the mouth. You open the nose to breathe. You may even do it in the exhale, and then you close. When you need to, you inhale, open and inhale. Exhale. Close and listen within. When you need to, inhale and exhale and continue like that. So this is the practice that he learned. You can do it in the exhale or you can do it in the inhale if it's very tough. You can do it in both, inhale and hold, exhale and hold. And by holding like that, if you're in a space of deep silence, and Mas Murray, when he learned that technique, he was in the desert, so he would do it at night in the desert where it's cool, and he would be doing this technique, which is quite special because the sun has been receiving the heat from the sun all day, and the sun is very hot, but the air is cool, and then you're in this middle between hot and cool, and you are closing all the gates, and then in that space of nothingness, because in the desert there is no sounds. I don't know if any of you have been to the desert. Meditating in the silence of the desert, I've done it, is quite amazing because there is no leaves of any tree, there is no motorbikes passing by, there is no birds, there's nothing, zero. So the silence is very profound. In that silence, you hear everything that's happening inside. And if you train yourself to listen within, then you can hear that subtle sounds, those subtle sounds, internal sounds. And you can get to hear the Om vibrating in the heart chakra. So that's the way that Mas Murray said that you could learn to do that. And he did it for a month or so. And then he said a whole month for an hour at 2 a.m. He said he would never stop hearing the Om. He can do it during the daytime. He can just tune in and hear the Om in that way. And I do like this, but it would be more like into the heart, yeah? Though you can hear more than just the Om. Every chakra has its own sound, and maybe some of you may have had that experience that you are in deep meditation and suddenly you hear the sound of a flute, or you may hear some strong sound like a thunder or like drums. And so every chakra has its own vibration, and sometimes you may hear this celestial music is actually within. Yeah. Thank you. Do we also lose energy looking in the dark, since the color black absorbs the most energy? Looking in the dark, what do you mean looking in the dark? Looking for something? Or like staying in silence in the dark and opening your eyes? Is that what you mean? I'm not sure what you mean. We recommend to meditate in the darkness. Yeah, I mean, Amrit Vela, yeah, when the sun has not risen, you can have a few candles, or maybe one of these salt lights, yeah? I don't know how to say it. There's a light made of salt. I don't have any here. Maybe I'll put one next, in a few days. I will put one over there. It will look good. And in this darkness, when you meditate, you can allow the brain to go into the twilight. I think I already did a video on the twilight. It must be one of the live streams. And that's the place where you can go through to a different state of consciousness. So you are kind of passing through a gateway, through that darkness. And you don't necessarily lose energy in that. I don't know if that's what you mean, but yeah. So breath, closing the holes, these are techniques that are useful to connect into the silence. Chanting mantras when the mind is very active. Going into nature is a wonderful thing. Nature has the capacity to purify our space, our energy, our aura, right? We get cleaned, and also the mind gets unloaded, and then we can tune in more within. You said looking at anything, we lose some energy, but in the dark, there's nothing to look at. Is it also the case? In a way, it is, because it doesn't have to be, but the moment we have our eyes open, 70% of our awareness goes through the eyes and activates the mind. So the eyes and the mind are very deeply connected. So, these things from neuro-linguistic programming or some psychology books, you will find, wherever the person is looking, you can tell whether they are accessing images or memories of feelings, or they are imagining something, or they are talking to themselves. You can see what's happening in their mind by what's happening in the eyes. So the eyes are a reflection of the mind, the activity of the mind. Therefore, keeping the eyes open, it's activating the mind in some way. Now, looking into the dark, it can be distracting in the way that, so it doesn't necessarily have to take away your energy, but it can be in the sense that the eyes are open, so the mind is very aware, and because there's nothing in the darkness, the mind may create some fantasy. It may start to create some story, and you have to be very careful not to go with that fantasy. Now, the eyes open is a technique, particularly if you are feeling sleepy. Rather than closing your eyes for meditation, you can leave the eyes 1/10 open and looking towards the tip of the nose. It's called Nasikagra, yeah? You're focusing on the tip of the nose. That's going to stimulate your pituitary gland. And it's also because some light may be coming in through the eyes a little bit open, even if it's just a little bit of light, it will keep you awake. So if you're falling asleep, it's a good technique so that you are not falling asleep, because then you are not meditating, you are sleeping, yeah? Sleepating, if you want, which is very common, right? You get up in the morning and then you are falling asleep. So keeping the eyes a little bit open may help. But it's also, some light comes in, because where is absolute darkness? If you do have absolute darkness, then if you're not going with any fantasy of the mind and you open your eyes, you may also see some sort of light, because there is some inner light that may come out. So, or even if you are focusing on the tip of the nose, you may see the blue pearl. I also did some video on that, right? You may start seeing the blue pearl. So there is no absolute darkness if you actually focusing your attention. If you look at the tip of the nose, even in the darkness, you will see a pearl. I think there's some Kriya Yoga meditations where you will see a little star, a 5-pointed star in the third eye as well. So full darkness is difficult to achieve, but even if you achieve it, if you don't go with the fantasy of the mind, then yes, you are not losing energy, and you may be just, focusing your attention to that blue light, or maybe to the other shininess that is there. That shininess, you can see it with the eyes closed as well. You can train yourself to just close the eyes. And actually, sometimes it's, look, I don't know if you've had this experience, but if you focus in this inner light, you may be at night, you may want to go to sleep, and outside your room is, I close everything, I close my window and the doors, and it's very, very dark, but you close your eyes, and then there is light. And then you open the eyes, and it's very dark, but then you close the eyes, and there is a lot of light. And it's more like a shadow of light, I don't know if I can explain it like that, or like a mist of light. Now that's the inner light that you have. That's the inner light within. And actually, I was mentioning before in a training on Sanarasayan, there's a way to utilize that light for healing. So you can bring that light to the areas in your body which are darker and bring healing to that. I also heard once that tone can see the light within. Oh, I guess you mean that one can see the light within. That light that makes up our dreams we see. Yes, I think that's the light I'm referring to, though I would differentiate the light of the dreams, which is a light coming from the fantasy of the mind, and that's our subconscious, and the actual light within, the light of our, I don't know if it would be our soul or our radiant body, but yes, there would be an inner light. Yes, much appreciated, so informative. Yes, Waheguru. It's an infinite light within. And you can allow that brightness. You close your eyes and you're meditating, and in the shadow, I can see the reflection of these lights when I close my eyes, but even if in the full darkness you close your eyes, you may see that shininess, and you can focus on that and allow it to bathe you and heal you. So yes. So closing the holes is one good technique as well. Another technique to go into silence, we're talking about tips and tricks on how to get into silence. That's what we're doing right now, is to do a hard activity, a strong activity, like a strong kriya, a strong series of exercises, yogic exercises, and then a deep relaxation. That can be a very excellent way to get into silence. And then it can be also anything that is going to calm your mind. It can be sports, it can be a hobby, it can be doing art. As I mentioned already, walking in nature, being in nature. All those things are going to calm down the mind and therefore stop the inner noise. Because at the end of the day, silence, the practice of silence is not so much about external silence, it's about internal silence. That's why I mentioned, going to the train station and doing this. It's not about not speaking. When you are doing a day of silence, if you want to experiment this, it's not about not speaking to anyone, but then, writing papers and messages in the emails and so on. It's about inner silence. So you can achieve that inner silence through some hobbies and arts. I remember, my mom likes to do puzzles. When she comes to visit, I bring out the puzzle boxes, and when we put my daughters to sleep, then she and I, we go downstairs and we play, we do a puzzle together. And we can be in silence doing the puzzle. And it's a very beautiful silence. And I find that we don't need to talk about silly things. We are just together. And it's a very intimate moment, me and my mom. But at the same time, the puzzle is kind of focusing our mind, because we have to find this piece where it goes. The mind is focused. And if you become aware, you are just with the other person in a very nice, close, intimate feeling in that silence. So that's interesting. Well, tuning in, chanting, tuning into the gurus, bowing your head and doing a prayer. This is all things that are going to connect us to the silence. And I mentioned already, silence brings us to listening. Listening creates this zero-ness space within where we are really present. And that's kind of a meditative state, because meditation is listening into that silence for the voice of our soul or the voice of our spirit. But not everything about silence is good. Let's just because I always talk about the paradox and the two sides of the coin, not everything about silence is good. Keeping some forms of silence when you have to speak, that would be karmic, yeah? If somebody has to say something and you don't say it, and you know what you have to say and you don't say it, that's going to be karmic. And you're going to create a blockage in your fifth chakra, right? If you want to say something and you're not saying in your, and you bite down, there's going to be some tension here, all around the throat and the lower maxillar. So there's going to be tension accumulated in the fifth chakra and the lower jaw, yeah? So speaking is important when it needs to be spoken. I think it was I read a poem some time ago by Rumi, right? How is that? Beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. And he says, I'll meet you there, right? And when the soul lies in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Something like that. I'm not 100% the words. When your soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Something like that. So he's saying us that when you go beyond right and wrong, you just want to be in silence. Yeah? When you are going beyond the judgments of right and wrong. We're talking about judgment linked to the mind games in the last course we are doing right now. So go beyond the judgment, go beyond the mind game, and then you will just want to go in silence. That's a natural thing. So that's a dharmic way of expression of silence. But then the karmic as well, I think it was Martin Luther King who said that in the end, something like that, I'm just paraphrasing, we'll not remember so much the words of our enemies as the silence of our friends. Something like that, yeah? So yes, if there is some injustice, if there is a need for a voice to be heard, and you have the discrimination, the discernment to know what has to be said, and you hear it within, and you feel the impulse to say it, if you stay silent in that time, that can also be karmic. Yeah. Can you suggest any practices to expand perception beyond the senses? Well, in order to go beyond the senses, it requires, first of all, some form of mastery of your own senses, I would say. So exploring what the senses are trying to tell us can also give us the capacity to connect to the senses in a more profound way. For example, what I mean is the sense of smell. Sense of smell, generally we utilize it very little. We actually have learned to disconnect from it. And it's actually one of the more essential ways to connect to our primal essence, to our primal instincts, let's say, right? Two dogs smelling their ass, right? As they meet. There's something about smell that is going to tell you about somebody else. Women should choose their partner through smell. What I mean by this is that if you don't like the smell of your partner, you're not very compatible, right? If you don't like the smell of somebody else, there's something that is telling you there's something wrong, something is toxic here. If you don't like your own smell, that's not a sign to change the odorant. That's a sign to change how you eat, first of all, your diet, and how you think. This is called the exhaust of your brain. So, like in the car, the exhaust tube, where things come out, the gases. So this is the exhaust tube of the brain. So whatever you are thinking is going to come out in some way. And also, if your sweat smells bad, that's a sign that your diet is not pure and balanced. So we should actually not remove our sweat through this deodorant, but rather smell it and notice what's wrong to be able to change it. Now, that's the power of smell, sensing that something is toxic, right? The power of smell also gives us a sense of direction, which is, you are asking us about expanding perception beyond the senses, but actually, is it beyond the senses or is it a refined version of the senses? I think there's both things, and they are both interesting. One is to take the sense and go beyond what it generally does and what we have forgotten, right? How often we don't smell the food as we eat it. And the nose is on top of the mouth to smell what goes in, not on top of the ass to smell what comes out, right? It's a nasty way of putting it. Sorry to be so graphic, but if the nose is here, it's for a reason. It's because we are supposed to smell something as it wants to go inside the mouth. If the smell is wrong, it should not go inside. And most people don't even notice, but some people may be like, oh, and they will even close their nose. If it's too spicy for the nose, it's not going to be good for the digestive system, for example, right? So as you refine your relationship to a sense like smell, you will develop a great sense of direction, and it's like you are sensing something that is going to align you. Is this person going to be aligned with me? Is there a smell aligning with me? Are we compatible in some way? What about which way should we go? The nose is the first part of the body, right? If you are walking and a door closes, the first thing that hits is the nose, unless you are, pulling your leg forward. So this is what is going to be pulling us in a certain direction. This is what's going to give us a sense of direction. So first of all, can we tune in to the gift that every sense is giving us, beyond what we generally use it for or what we have forgotten that it can give us, like the smell? Now, you can do that through a meditation on every sense. I shared sometimes in another video how you can train yourself on the sense of touch. You can blindfold yourself and try to do everything with the eyes closed in the morning before you leave for work. From the moment you wake up, you blindfold yourself and you don't remove it until you're out the door. And try to, if you shave yourself, shave how you shave yourself without looking. If you prepare your breakfast, how do you do it? If you eat your breakfast, how do you do it? All with a sense of touch. Allow yourself to have 10 or 15 minutes extra, because you're going to lose some time doing this, or maybe even more. But you can refine that sense of touch, and that's going to give you sensitivity, and sensitivity can give you a capacity to tune in to something more subtle, right? And yeah, if we say sexuality, sensuality, sensitivity, spirituality, that's another topic for another video, right? But it's that sensitivity, you can tune into that through that practice of, for example, blinding yourself. So every one of the senses, they can give us a different dimension that is more spiritual, and it can make our life more interesting, yeah? Being able to smell somebody when they come, right? Or the deep listening of the frequency that person is emitting, right? Or listening to what is not being heard, listening what the other one is not saying. As they are speaking, can you hear the word that they are not saying? You can try this exercise. Next time you are, talking to somebody, hear their words and ask yourself, what is the word not being said? What are they not saying by saying all these things? That's a very profound question, and you can learn to tune into that and learn to listen to that as well. So before trying to go beyond the senses, I would say, go into the senses, refine the senses, tune them into the gift that they can give you beyond what we generally use them. Then, pratyahara, bring the senses inwards, tuning to something higher, and then senses, we have five basic senses, the gross senses, but then they are associated to the first 5 chakras. Then as we elevate your consciousness and you bring it to the third eye, then the 6th sense wakes up, which is, see the unseen, right? Go beyond what is being seen, beyond what is being visible, and then you can start to perceive something that is not naturally seen with your regular eyes, and that could include something yet to come. So that's going beyond the senses. But I would say there is even more senses. There's not just 5. There's not even just the third eye with the 6th sense. There's the sense of humor, right? Have you ever thought about that? To go beyond the senses, the 5 senses, and tap into your sense of humor? How about your sense of, how is that said? Common sense. Common sense is also a sense. There's some people who are just capable to find, this is obvious. They will say it's common sense. Actually, it's not. Many people cannot find it. Many people are blind to that. So, humor, Common sense, humor would be the sense of humor, right? Common sense. There is other senses. Have you ever reflected upon those? And have you ever thought about how to develop those? Um, Infinite Stories is writing something, but you cannot see it yet because there's some delay. Sense of direction, yes. Yeah, that's linked to the nose, yeah? So that one is actually linked to the sense of smell. So if you tune into your sense of smell, you can develop that sense of direction. So you see so many senses. And, but yeah, let's not forget, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, yeah? It's through the abstraction of the senses and tuning them inwards, synchronizing within, then we can go into concentration, meditation, and Samadhi. Infinity clarifies, I meant beyond the senses rather than extension of the senses, like they say, other dimensions or lokas. yeah, I would say that can happen through the process of Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Now, when you go into another dimension and you access one of these lokas, is it through the power of your third eye? Or is it something else? I'm not sure about that. Because through your third eye, you can have an intuitive perception of something that is beyond this realm, but you're actually going into that space, going into that dimension. Like, let's say you access the blue ethers. Having access to this, or the lokas, right? Having access to this spiritual dimension, it may happen on a higher connection, in maybe like more a spiritual link, rather than your intuition. It may be something else. It may be more like more than the sixth chakra. I see it more like the seventh, going beyond through the crown, rather than seeing it from here. You may have an intuitive perception that they exist from here. You may have a glimpse of a vision, but to actually to go to that place, that I would say that would be through the crown. That's my intuitive understanding, but I may be wrong, or maybe you will have a different experience. You can share it with us. Silence, silence, silence. Well, if I mentioned that silence was about listening, it was stimulating listening, and listening is one of the key ingredients of meditation, right? And we're talking about this, accessing to these dimensions is like dharana, dhyana, samadhi, right? So dhyana is meditation. For that, we require this inner silence. Are those within us or outside? Well, it's both. There is no within and without. Everything is happening. This is just like a... It's like, sometimes it's said it's like a game, like a theater, like a movie, right? And we are having an experience here in this theater world to relate to something that is beyond this three-dimensional world that we are seeing. And time and space, when you get into this, when we are going into these discussions of accessing these other dimensions or lokas or ethers, time and space either become very soft and malleable or just disappear. So this space, to say something is within or outside is just a matter of space, and space doesn't really exist in that way. So when you close your eyes and you access a deep state of meditation, you realize that there is no difference between your foot and your ear. There is no difference. There is no space. There is no separation. They are connected. And if they are in the same space, and there is only one space, space of consciousness, and there is no inside and outside of that space. You are either conscious or not. And if you are conscious, in that space of consciousness, you can sense the ear and the foot are the same, and they are in the same space, in the space of consciousness. When you can tune into that, then you realize that inside and outside it's only relevant when we are in the regular state of mind, eyes open and operating in the normal dimension, let's say. The moment that we close our eyes, we have the capacity to start merging into that other state. That's touching the Ekonkar. Yeah? Ekonkar, all is one. Ekankar Satnam. So that's true. Just your true reality, your Satnam, is that we are all one. Well, if that's so, if we are all one, what is within and what is without is one. So there's no difference. So we often talk about these dimensions, like when we discuss, for example, what happens after death. And we talk about the astral realm and we talk about the etheric realm, right? The blue ethers. And we talk about them like somewhere we have to go to. We even talk about the soul having to leave the body, which is already something physical in this space. And now we are talking inside and outside. And the soul has to live through the crown, and the soul has to cross the electromagnetic field of the earth. And there's all this journey that seems to be happening in order to get to that place of the blue ethers. However, can you not access the blue ethers from here? Yes, you can. Yeah, totally agree. Just like infinity equals zero. Yeah, infinity is zero, but it's like this. You just have to untwist it, right? You have to find the connection between the two. And the gateway, I don't know if you can see, but can you see it? It's very, very narrow. It's very small. That's why it is said it's like passing through the hole of a needle, right? You have to leave your ego behind. If you go with a big ego, look at me, what a great meditator I am. I can go into the ethers. You're not going to go through the hole. You're going to meet the hole, and you're going to get stuck there. So to go through that very narrow passage, it's leaving everything non-essential behind, right? All right, so let's connect this idea to the prayer. Let's go to prayer now. If meditation is listening to the silence inside, and now we know inside and outside there's no difference, right? So that's why we say God within and God without, God inside and God outside, everything is connected. If meditation is listening to that, the divine within, well, what is prayer then? One good metaphor that is often used this is something we utilize in the teacher trainings, is to say that meditation is listening and prayer is speaking, is talking. So this is like, let's say, talking to God and listening to God, okay? Whether you like the word God or not, because I know for so many people, God, the word has a lot of connotations, but ignore the idea of God like a bearded man on a cloud. Don't go into that, okay? Just connect to this, whatever divine essence is in the universe. So imagine that I have my phone, and every day I know the number of God, right? I know the mantra that is gonna, you connect, and then I'm gonna listen. And I listen for 31 minutes every day. And then you go and do your things, right? And every day you do this. And 20 years later, you are like, I've been 30 minutes every day, 31 minutes every morning, speaking to God. He never spoke back to me. Well, were you really speaking to God, or were you listening to God, right? And maybe it was that. You were just listening. If you had only once said, hello, are you there? And then God is like, oh, there's somebody. I don't know. There was so much silence. Why didn't you say anything before, right? So it's like, meditation is like this very, very empty state of awareness and receptivity. And that's super important. It's critical. But if you don't project out that you're willing to engage in some sort of communication, then you're just empty, receiving. And then what's going to come? So prayer is the other side. It's about speaking to that divine. Now there's people who do the opposite. They go to church every day. They go pray. Every Sunday they go, they pray. They go home, they do their Ave Marias, the Padre Nuestro, the Holy Father. And they pray and they pray and they pray and they are like speaking and speaking. Oh, you know, God, what I did. And today we went to this place and we went to the other place and we went to that thing. And I would love for you to be with me because we were doing this. And oh, please bless all of us. And God is like, I want to say something. And you're like, but you know what happened on the other day? And I wish that you could take care of those little kids who are in the street. And God is like, hello, hello. And okay, thank you, bye-bye. Bing. Right? So when are you giving a chance for the other one to speak? So this is why in a good metaphor of prayer is like speaking, and then meditation is like listening. In Kundalini Yoga, we chant the Japji Sahib, the first prayer from the Holy Book of the Sikhs in the morning. That's the first thing we do in the morning as we wake up. And then, you go to the toilet, you do other things, and then you chant the Japji. And then that's the prayer state. That's when you open the channel. That's when you say, hello, God, I am here. I'm ready to receive you. I am going to be listening. And then you listen. And then you go into meditation. Then you finish your meditation. And after the meditation, thank you for the wonderful meditation. Please be around during the day. Sadnam. Sadnam. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a particular prayer. You don't have to chant the Japji Sahib. You don't have to chant the Ave Maria or the Holy Father. You don't have to say something specific. But you have to establish that connection in some way. Are you willing to have a communication? Or is just you, by the power of your own meditation, that you're going to reach storm the doors of heaven, right? Through the power of your own will, through meditation. I mean, well, why not allow some communication to be happening, some exchange? Have you stopped to listen? If you stop to listen, that's a meditation. But have you said, well, what do I need now? But it's not about needing asking what you want in your life. I mean, you can do that as well. But most people, most people do prayer for two things. One, to ask for forgiveness. It's like you go to the priest. I'm thinking, Catholic. I don't know so much about some religions, so maybe anybody who is Muslim here, they will let me know how they utilize prayer, or if you are Buddhist or whatever other religion you have. But what I see is many people go to the church, they go with their sins, right? I did a video on sins yesterday, and the priest tells them, ooh, okay, you did all that this week? Okay, 3 Ave Marias and 2 Holy Fathers. And then you go and you chant, you do the prayers to clean yourself, right? That's one thing. Now, yogi perspective already says, whatever you did, whatever karma you generated through your actions this week, that's going to come back to you. You don't have to ask for forgiveness. You just have to forgive yourself for having made mistakes, because we are not perfect and we made mistakes. So forgive yourself for that and try to do better next time. So the first prayer is like that. The second kind of prayer that people do is to ask for things. And this is to me, extremely funny, that you will find 2 football teams playing together, and those are praying to God to win, and those are praying to God to win. And it's like, what are you doing, right? So praying, asking for things, that's not the essence of prayer. The essence of prayer should be establishing that communication with the unknown, with the divine within and outside. How to connect to that so that you feel connected and you feel accompanied. You feel like there's somebody next to you, there's somebody listening to you and guiding you. If you connect in that way, during the day, there will be moments when you feel there is a command. Do this or do that. You will know when to say something and when not to say something. And it will not come from you, it will come from something else, some other, something that you tune into. So prayer serves in that way. Yes, occasionally, if you have some particular moment of challenge in your life, you can ask for blessings, you can ask for grace, you can ask for God to help you, to show you the way and make you have the capacity to overcome a challenge. But to pray, to see prayer as something to ask for things or even to ask for forgiveness, to me is just a very limited way of relating to prayer. Where are we? Can we find a balance between prayer and meditation? Can we find a new way to relate to prayer and not just the Pissian way, the one of the last 100 years where we have to feel guilty and then we pray to cleanse our soul. Our soul is already clean. Our soul is pure. We don't need to cleanse anything. If it says, as a Catholic boy, I saw prayer as a punishment sometimes. And if I didn't pray, that God would be angry. I'm glad I know better now. Yes, indeed. It takes a long time to find spirituality out of religion. I had a lot of issues with religion, particularly with the word God and with everything I learned as a Catholic as well. I think I've made my peace. I can go into a church and appreciate what's happening there now, and I can relate to the spirituality in the teachings of Jesus or Muhammad or whatever teachings we are talking about. I can relate to that and see the spirituality in that without having to go into the dogma of the religion behind. But appreciate that religion, the word religion comes from religare, ligare meaning to join. And that's exactly the word yoga. Yoga means, it comes from yug, which means to join. So actually, doing yoga and religion, the focus is the same. To merge back with the divine. It's just the path is different, and we need to let go of some of the old ways of understanding divinity and relate in a way that makes sense for us today. To me, what really, really helped me in this concept, Infinite Stories, what was really essential for me was coming upon this little book. It's called Prayers of the Cosmos. Prayers of the Cosmos. And it's a retranslation, a modern understanding, giving us the context of how was language used in the old days of the Lord's Prayer. So, we have very few things which were actually said by Jesus, because, the Bible was written by people sometimes 150 years after his death or even more. And then it was decided what would go into the Bible, what would not go into the Bible by some other people. I think it was in one, anyway, let's not go into that. Actual words from Jesus, how many do we have? In the Aramaic, I don't think he spoke Latin. He definitely didn't speak English, right? So in Aramaic, we have very few things. One of the things we have is the Lord's Prayer. And then taking the Lord's Prayer and finding a retranslation of the words, to me was so healing. For example, the word Lord's Prayer, Lord, if you read the original, I believe it's something like the one who gave birth to the cosmos, something like that. And it's like, wait a moment, giving birth is more like a female thing than male. So when Jesus was talking about God, would he be able to divine mother in some way rather than a divine father? Oh, wait, the mother is the church, God is the father. Wait a moment, could there be something here? So reading again a retranslation of the original Aramaic was very healing to me to realize maybe, is not the problem with Christianity, with Jesus itself. It's a problem with churchianity. That was more my problem. Then I made my pieces with Jesus, then I made my pieces with the church, because even now in the church there's many beautiful movements happening where people can relate to something spiritual without going into you are sinful, you have to pray to redeem your sins, and so on. I think there is a new movement in the church which are very beautiful, and we can have beautiful exchanges with people from within the church. But to me, I had to do this path to get there. But anyway, so receiving my name, Ardaas, as prayer, and me having this challenge with the word God and praying itself, That was challenging, but I'm learning to make my pieces. I wouldn't say I've learned 100% because I would say your spiritual name is kind of something to work all your life. So I'm still working on that. But yes, I can appreciate now and include that prayer within the practice with meditation and balance both. I feel we are getting to the end of this conversation. I hope it was of service. I hope it was interesting. Let me just say thanks again to everybody supporting the channel. 1,000 subscribers is wonderful. Next week, I'm going to be away all week. I'm going to Dubai. I always love traveling to other countries, particularly when they have a different tradition or different religion, because it gives you a different perspective. And I can, talking to Muslims about yoga, it's very interesting. It gives a fresh look at things. Infinity says, also in the Hebrew Bible, in Genesis, Bereshit bara Elohim, meaning first gods created. Elohim is the male and the female gods. Interesting. Yeah, God has no gender, right? Yeah, God has no gender, definitely. There's some, when you read the gurus, the Sikh gurus, they all talk about themselves as female, going to meet with they are the brides, the soul bride, they call it, the soul bride going to meet their Lord God, like the, how do you say that? The groom, yeah? They talk about the soul bride going to meet the groom. In the sense, when they talk about this, is in the sense that Shakti is Kundalini Shakti, yeah? It's feminine. And we all have that Shakti within, even men, right? And as that Kundalini energy is waking up, is our own feminine energy waking up. And as it reaches the crown, it merges with Shiva. And there is some male and female energies mixing. We all have the polarity within, male and feminine. But it's interesting when we can connect to do both things. I like Yogananda's, when he talks about the Divine Mother. I like that perspective as well. Thank you so much, Ardaas. It was great talking to you. Yes, great Infinity. Great to have you here. Everyone, thank you for the support. Thank you for everything. And I will see you in 2 weeks' time. And next week, I will put some videos in the channel, but they are old videos. I'm just, editing them and putting some thumbnails and so on. Satnam. Till next time.